In a few frantic minutes, the course of World War II in the Pacific theater swings hard. The Japanese Imperial Navy enters the fight with the most feared carrier force on Earth, and the US Navy looks outmatched in almost every way that counts. Then the sky opens, bombs fall, and 3 Japanese aircraft carriers turn into burning wrecks before crews below deck can grasp how fast the line has broken. So how does a weaker fleet land a blow like that? It starts well before the dive bombers roll in, because Admiral Nimitz sees the strike coming and puts the trap in place days before the battle. On the ground in the Pacific theater, the mood is grim. The Japanese Imperial Navy has ripped through one position after another, its carriers ranging far across the ocean, while the US Navy scrambles to hold what is left. Ships are short, crews are tired, and every loss cuts deeper, because there are so few decks left to send into the fight. Japan wants one clean kill. The plan aims at Midway, a small atoll with outsized weight, because an attack there should pull the American carriers out into open water, where the main Japanese force can crush them. It is a baited hook backed by battleships, cruisers, destroyers, submarines, and the Kido Butai, the carrier strike force that has already shown what massed naval air power can do. But the trap leaks. American codebreakers start piecing together the Japanese move, and Admiral Nimitz trusts what they are telling him, even though the stakes are enormous and the margin for error is almost gone. He does not wait for the enemy to prove the point. He acts first, and that choice changes the shape of the battle before the first plane lifts off. Midway becomes more than a target. Nimitz turns it into bait with teeth, packing it with reconnaissance planes, bombers, fighters, submarines nearby, and every warning asset he can get into place, while the carrier force moves into a hidden position northeast of the island. The Japanese think they are advancing into surprise. The Americans are already there, quiet, spread wide, and ready to strike from outside the enemy's picture. That hidden force is fragile, but it is real. USS Enterprise and Hornet move into the ambush zone, and Yorktown joins them after roughly 1,400 Pearl Harbor workers patch her up in about 72 hours, just enough to send her back into the line because there is no other choice. If one carrier goes down, the plan may collapse. If all 3 launch, the balance can shift in a single morning. Everything now depends on timing and sight. Aircraft carriers fight beyond the horizon, so the side that finds the other first gets the first real chance to kill. Search planes, radio reports, launch cycles, deck space, arming orders, fuel, all of it matters, because a carrier battle is a race to put armed aircraft over an exposed deck at the exact wrong moment. That moment is coming fast. As the fleets close in darkness, both sides move toward dawn with loaded planes, tight nerves, and no clear picture of where the first punch will land. Once daylight breaks, there will only be the search, the launch, and the first mistake. Dawn comes with one hard rule: find first, strike first. In carrier war, the ships themselves sit far apart, so the men on the bridges wait on scraps of sight and broken radio calls, while scout planes range over a grey sea that still hides almost everything. One missed report can leave a whole force blind, and one late launch can leave armed planes trapped on deck when the enemy arrives overhead. The Japanese open the morning with a strike on Midway itself, and for a short span, the operation still looks on track. Bombs fall on the island, smoke lifts over the runways, and returning pilots report that another hit will be needed to finish the job. That call lands at the worst possible moment, because the Japanese carriers still hold reserve aircraft meant for a sea fight, and those aircraft now sit between 2 missions while the clock burns away. Nagumo has to choose what to arm for next. If the American carriers are still far off, he needs planes set for another blow at Midway. If enemy ships are close, he needs anti-ship weapons loaded at once. That sounds like a staff problem on paper, but on the decks it means carts moving bombs, crews rolling torpedoes, fuel hoses stretched out, and aircraft packed wing to wing, while landing planes also need room to come back. The whole system tightens until there is almost no slack left. Then the reports start to cut across each other. Search results come in late and not clean. Midway aircraft attack from the island. Japanese fighters drop low to break them up. Returning strike planes circle and need to land. Rearming crews keep shifting ordnance because the next mission still isn't clear. Every few minutes the picture changes, and each change sends more men running across steel decks already jammed with machines, fuel, and live weapons. American attacks arrive in pieces, not as one clean hammer blow. Midway-based aircraft go first and get torn apart, yet they keep pressure on the Japanese formation and force more defensive turns. After that come the torpedo squadrons from the US carriers, flying low and straight into a wall of fire, skimming the water while tracers rip past the canopies and fighters slash through the formation. Those torpedo attacks fail in the narrow sense. Very few hits land, and whole squadrons vanish. Men from USS Enterprise, Hornet, and Yorktown fall into the sea in burning planes or do not return at all. But the air battle now bends in a way no one in those cockpits can see. Japanese Combat Air Patrol dives after the torpedo bombers and stays low. The carrier force turns hard to evade, deck crews lose more time, and the neat rhythm needed for launch and recovery starts to fray. Overhead, almost by accident and just in time, American dive bombers finally break onto the scene. Some have flown past where they expect to find the enemy and are running short on fuel. Then the search line shifts. The wake of the destroyer Arashi points the way, and the lost strike groups angle toward the Japanese carriers. The sky above the Kido Butai is thin of cover because the fighters are still down near the water. Time seems to slow right there. On the decks below, aircraft sit exposed during rearm and refuel, while crews scramble to clear space for the next cycle. Then the dive bombers roll in. From USS Enterprise and Yorktown, they drop almost on top of the Japanese force at the same time, and within a few minutes, not a literal 4, bombs slam into Akagi, Kaga, and Soryu, punching into hangars and work areas crowded with fuel and ordnance. Fire races through the ships faster than orders can move. The world explodes across the Japanese line. Smoke pours upward in thick black columns as secondary blasts kick through the hulls. Men who think they are preparing the next strike are now fighting flame, shattered steel, and heat that drives them back from their own decks. In a matter of minutes, the strongest carrier force in the Pacific theater loses 3 fleet carriers in one violent collapse of timing, sight, and control. Yet the battle still has one sharp edge left. Hiryu survives untouched for the moment, and one working carrier can still send enough aircraft to tear the fight back open. Smoke now hangs over the sea, where 3 carriers burn. But inside Hiryu, the machinery of war is still running. Flight crews arm planes, engines start, and the last intact Japanese deck sends out the counterstroke, while the rest of the force struggles to understand the scale of the damage around it. The formation is broken, though it isn't dead yet. That return blow finds Yorktown. The ship takes hits that stop her, and for a moment, it looks as if the Japanese have evened the score with one fast answer. Damage control crews rush into smoke and twisted compartments, patch lines, fight flooding, and get the carrier moving again with a speed that shocks the attackers, who later spot her and think they have found a fresh American carrier, rather than the same wounded ship still afloat. A second strike follows and lands more punishment. Yorktown finally falls silent in the water, listing and battered, while escort ships pull survivors clear and keep watch for the next attack. So the danger never really leaves. The Japanese Imperial Navy still carries enough force to hurt the US Navy badly if Hiryu slips away or launches again before the Americans can pin her down. Search planes keep ranging out, and at last they get the report the Americans need. Hiryu is found. Once that message reaches the task force, dive bombers from USS Enterprise turn toward the last Japanese carrier with daylight fading and almost no room left for error. They arrive over the target and hit hard, setting Hiryu ablaze and knocking out the final deck that can keep the Japanese carrier battle alive. With Hiryu burning, the balance breaks for good. The planned knockout blow against American aircraft carriers turns into retreat, and the Japanese force begins to pull back, with 4 fleet carriers lost and many of its best-trained airmen gone. In the Pacific Theater, ships can be built again, but veteran deck crews and strike leaders are much harder to replace under wartime pressure. Midway ends at sea, but its weight rolls forward into every campaign that follows. Midway flips the war in the Pacific because the US Navy smashes the core of Japanese carrier power in a single day and takes the initiative away from the Japanese Imperial Navy. If you want the next part of that story, watch the follow-up on how carrier war keeps reshaping the Pacific Theater. And for more deep dives into battles like this, subscribe to the channel.